Hey. Man, that feels good. Thanks, man. Well, Landon, it is so good to be with you this morning. We're actually going to be wrapping up the series we've been in for a couple of weeks now that we titled Simply Jesus. Now, if you've been with us through this whole series, then you know what we've been doing is looking at the I am and the I am not statements of Jesus. Right? Because if we're going to follow Jesus, one of the things that's helpful is to know who he is and how better to figure out who someone is than who they declare that they are and that they are not. Because then we can sort of look at that and go, okay, if that's who Jesus is, then how do we live our lives in light of who he is and what he has called us to? And so we're going to be wrapping that up today before we get into Mother's Day next week. And so guys, like spoiler alert, or like heads up, it's 1 week away. Like it's here. So if you have a mom figure in your life, or like me, we've got 6 kids and they're all like 10 and under, so it's my job to do Mother's Day right now for them. So I've already prepared. My wife's in the room. I've already got the gift. It's coming in the mail. Hopefully it'll be here in time, right? And I don't know what you're going to do for Mother's Day next week, but I'm going to try to create an environment where my wife doesn't have to think about momming for the day. And so she's just going to have the day to do whatever she wants to do. And it may be that she chooses to just watch a movie or relax. And it's one of her favorite things to do. In fact, when we were dating, we were talking the other day, we're going to be celebrating 15 years of marriage this summer. Right? I know, we're doing pretty good. We're there. And so we're going to be celebrating. One of the things I learned about her is that when we approach television or we approach movies, when we were dating and engaged, we loved to do it together, but we like very different kinds of movies, okay? So for instance, my wife enjoys anything on the Hallmark Channel. If you can, okay, some of you are in the same boat. You're like, yeah, you just told me a whole lot about yourself. Because here's look, they're all the same. Look at the, guys, I just Googled Hallmark movies and this is what came up. Now here's the thing. The reason my wife likes Hallmark movies and kind of that rom-com chick flick world is maybe not the stereotypical reason. She enjoys it because our life is busy. We are all over. So she's like, if I have a 2.5 hour window to sit down and watch something, I want to suspend life for a moment. I want to be happy. I want to enjoy it. I don't care that I know the beautiful, albeit predictable ending that is going to come in this. I'm here to be entertained and to enjoy the beauty of life. And so with that, it's kind of her attitude going into movies and television. You can imagine this moment when we were dating and we went to the movie theater and saw No Reservations. Maybe you remember this movie. It's got Catherine Zeta-Jones and that guy that kind of looks like Luke Wilson or Owen Wilson, but isn't a Wilson at all in it. And the story of this, right, the kind of the plot line is this talented chef, Catherine Zeta-Jones, is juggling life and work and love when unexpectedly her sister dies and she becomes the guardian of her niece. And so as you can imagine, there's all sorts of fun little moments and romance and back and forth between the characters and how the niece plays in the middle of it. But there's this moment towards the end of the movie. It's the climactic, this pivotal moment in the movie that I'm going to give away. So spoiler alert to this mediocre 2007 movie, okay? But there's this moment towards the end of the movie where the niece goes missing. And everybody is freaking out. They're running around. They're trying to find, where could she be? We've lost her. What's going to happen? And that's the moment in the movie theater where I chose to lean over to my wife and I was like, I bet she's at the graveyard sitting in front of her mom's tomb. My wife looked at me like, why would you say that? And guess where they found the niece 3 minutes later? And so we watch, and my wife, this is also the moment she banned me from talking in movies ever again. But this is that moment that afterwards she's like, why would you give it away? Why? You're supposed to suspend judgment and just enjoy it. Why are you trying to figure out what happens in the plot line? Just relax and enjoy it a little bit. Well, see, the reason I was trying to figure out what was going to happen is because I kind of like movies like these. I like Usual Suspects, and I like Snatch, and I like, Rounders, and I like Fight Club, and I like Memento, and apparently any movie where Edward Norton is the supporting character there. And so these are the movies I like, right? And here's the deal about these movies. Some of you that know these movies, you're judging your pastor hard right now because these are not happy movies, okay? These are dark, and there is death, and there is amnesia, and there is gambling, and well, quite frankly, there's things that you don't talk about because the first rule of these movies is you don't talk about these movies. Okay, so these are what I like, but they're done in such a way that I loved watching these, and by the way, I was single when I watched all these. I loved watching them because they're written, they're edited, they're underscored, they're filmed in a way that you're supposed to be trying to figure out the ending. You're supposed to be a little bit confused in the middle of it. And you can't. You can't. If they're done well, you can't figure it out. And then by the time you get to the end, there's this like aha moment where it all comes together and you're like, oh, that makes so much sense. Which is why I was watching No Reservations, trying to figure out what was going to happen in the end, because it's just the way that I'm wired and what I enjoy. Today's sermon, as we close out this series, could be a little bit confusing to us. And so in an attempt to sort of present this in a way that would be more for like what my wife would enjoy than what I would enjoy, we're going to have to go back and get some context of things that before we jump into the New Testament. And so hopefully you won't be super confused, maybe a little bit, but without all the darkness of the movies that I really like to watch. And so we've got to go back into Israel's past. So here in a minute, we're going to be in chapter 6 of John. We'll be in John chapter 6. But before we get there, we have to understand some things that have happened in Israel's past. Because there are motifs, there are stories, there are plot lines that have happened to Israel that if we don't understand that, we miss what's happening in the New Testament text that we look at. Because there's a big, full story of things that are happening there. You see, in Exodus chapter 3, there's this moment where Israel are slaves. Before they were slaves, though, they were a person named Jacob who wrestled with God and was given the name Israel, and from him came the great nation that is Israel. But before they become the nation, they're slaves. And as slaves, God comes to set them free. Now, if you've been around our church for any amount of time, you know we reference, specifically in this series, the Exodus story a lot. Because there's so many major little themes that play out in that because we know all of the story, we can look back and go, oh, I understand it. Sort of like when I watch the movies I like, after I've seen them one time, I like to go back and watch them again, and I pick up new things that I missed the first time because I know where it's going. And so this Exodus story is huge in Israel's history. As I said, they're not yet a nation. They've been slaves for 430 years. God calls a man named Moses to come and to set them free from the rulers and the government of Egypt that they've been slaves under. And Moses comes and he sets them free in some amazing, miraculous ways. And they cross the Red Sea, and now they begin to wander the wilderness. And by the time we're going to pick up the story in Exodus chapter 16, it's been 2.5 months since they are free from 430 years of slavery. So they are now free, but they've left water and bread and meat and a warm fire and dates and palm trees of Egypt for the barren wilderness of the desert where there is no water and there is no bread and there is no meat. And so their circumstances are different, both in what they can have to consume and the freedoms that they are enjoying. And it's there where we're going to pick up the story in Exodus chapter 16, verse 2. Here's what the people are saying. If only the Lord had killed us back in Egypt, they moaned. There we sat around pots filled with meat and ate all of the bread we wanted. But now you have brought us into this wilderness to starve us all to death. Isn't that just like human beings? 2.5 months ago, you were slaves crying out for freedom. And now, because you're not getting from God what you think you should be getting right now, you're grumbling and you're complaining. Israel has forgotten who God is. You see, I can feel that temptation because there's times that maybe like Israel, I do that where I'm like, hey, God, when I want something from you and I feel like you're giving me what I am requiring and you want from me, I like to be in relationship with you. But as soon as I feel like, God, you're not giving me what I want and what I deserve, now I begin to grumble and complain against you. And it's sort of that like, God, what have you done for me lately kind of a thing. And this is where we find Israel in this story. of going, God, never mind what happened 2.5 months ago. What are you doing today? We are in the wilderness. You see, in essence, what they're saying is, God, we don't really want you. We want the things you can give us. And you're not giving us what we want. But God, being rich in mercy, provides for them. Then the Lord said to Moses, look, I'm going to rain down food from heaven for you. Each day the people can go out and pick up as much food as they need for that day. I will test them in this to see whether or not they will follow my instructions. On the 6th day, as the text continues, they will gather food, and when they prepare it, there will be twice as much as usual. You see what God says is, in being rich in mercy, he goes, okay, fine. Israel, I'm going to give you something. I'm going to provide bread. It's going to be called manna. It's going to fall down from heaven. And I'm not going to leave you, but I will give you what you need just for today. This is in essence what God is saying. He's going, what I will do is give you what you need today. So go out, collect the manna, cook it, eat it, but don't collect more than you need. If you collect more than you need, then you're going to wake up the next morning and it's going to have spoiled and be filled with maggots. I'm teaching you to trust me. When the weekend comes, Friday, go and collect enough for the 2 days that you need. And then you're going to cook it and it's going to multiply you and get you through the weekend, because I've told you to honor the Sabbath and to keep it holy, and I want you to rest. And so I know it doesn't make sense and it's not logical, but trust me in this. Collect it, enjoy it, and then do it again. You see, this is what faith with God is always meant to be. It was always supposed to be a partnership. It's always supposed to be a partnership that God will provide, but we will participate. That we trust God enough to provide, and yet we have a responsibility to participate with him. They have to trust God to provide every single day. If they try to do it in their own merit and in their own ways and provide bread for themselves to sort of last beyond, God says, no, it's going to go bad. I'm building trust. It's even said, I'm doing this to test you, Israel. It becomes a daily test for them in their story and their history. Why? They've been slaves in Egypt for 430 years. With a different worldview, with a different understanding of how the gods worked, with no relationship with Yahweh, who has redeemed them and rescued them and overthrown the Egyptian government so they can go free. And God's going, I need to build relationship with you so that you don't just want the things from me, you want me. It's trusting God that he is who he says he is, not just what he can do for them. And so he goes, I'm going to provide for you because it's about relationship with me, and I want to build this relationship with you. And so this is the backstory of Exodus chapter 16 that we have to understand, kind of that broad painted picture there before we can ever jump into our New Testament passage. And so with that, let's go to the New Testament passage for today. It's going to be John chapter 6. We're going to be in John 6, and here's what's happening is like in the early story of Israel, Jesus has been walking around doing miraculous things, redeeming people, rescuing people, saving people from, in the same way that Israel was rescued from slavery, literally, God is now in the form of Jesus rescuing people from the slavery of their own sin. And he's been performing miracles that are beginning to draw crowds to him. For instance, in John chapter 4, there's a moment where Jesus goes and he meets a woman at the well and he provides water for her. And then he says, I am the living water. Come to me and you will never thirst. And in that moment, not only is it a woman, but it's a Samaritan woman. And so Jesus is crossing ethnic, gender, and racial boundaries in this moment as if to say to the world, I am the God who has come for all people and all times to draw everyone to myself, no matter what your background is. And so word begins to spread. There's somebody who is coming and he speaks like a prophet of old, but he's come not just for the elite of culture and society, he's come for everyone. In John chapter 5, there's this place called the Pools of Bethsaida, and there Jesus walks in, and the way the pools would work is there would be people that were lame and crippled and handicapped around the pools, and anytime the pools would stir, the text even says it was as if an angel of the Lord would pull it. You would try to be the first one to dunk yourself into the water, and if you could be first, then you would be healed. And Jesus walks up amongst all of that, and he finds a man that is crippled, and he says, believe in me, stand up and walk, and the guy gets up and he walks out. And so word begins to spread. There's a man who is crossing boundaries in a way that is drawing all people to the good news of that God has for them. And he can heal you just like God healed and rescued the people of Israel. And it's with that we see chapter 6, verse 2. So a huge crowd kept following him wherever he went because they saw his miraculous signs as he healed the sick. And Jesus climbed a hill and sat down with his disciples around him. It was nearly time for the Jewish Passover celebration. Jesus soon saw a huge crowd of people coming to look for him. Turning to Philip, notice the similar language of testing that we read in Exodus. Where can we buy bread to feed all these people? He was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. Philip replied, even if we worked for months, we would not have enough money to feed all of them. Jesus in this moment is going, Philip, I'm testing you. Where can we find bread? And Philip's response is like, oh, we can't do it. Like we could work for months and months and months and we would never have enough money to buy enough bread to feed all of the crowds that are here that are following Jesus, because you're crossing these boundaries and you're healing the sick and the lame. And so people are coming in droves. You see, Jesus is going, I want to provide bread for them. And Philip's going, I don't know that that's possible. I don't know that we can do it. Jesus is revealing who he is by asking Philip to trust him, and he's drawing lines back to the earlier plot point of Exodus. It's right after this that we get one of the more famous miracles of Jesus. There's 5,000 men that are there on the hillside listening to him, and the disciples go around all of the people and they're like, we got it. Jesus wants some bread. We got to find some bread. Anybody got some bread? And there's one little boy that comes who has 5 loaves and 2 fish. And I just have to believe that kid's mom sent him that day with the 5 loaves and 2 fish, because we had a baseball game for my son yesterday, and my wife called. She had a thing in the morning. She called me about 9:30 and was like, hey, we're leaving in 20 minutes. Have you made lunch yet? Like I reminded you the night before that you needed to make lunch because we're going to be gone all day. And I was like, nope. Hadn't made lunch yet. She was like, we need to make lunch. And I was like, yep, I got it. We're going to be ready. Like, we would have gotten in the car and gone to like track and then to baseball, and my kids would have starved all day. Because without my wife calling, she's like, I need to call and remind him that he was supposed to make lunch, right? So I have to believe that like this mom sent this kid with this food that day. And so then Jesus takes it and he breaks the bread and he divides the fish, and 5,000 people are fed. It's a miracle. So much so that 12 baskets were left over. They have take-home food after this. And so the people come to the same conclusion that you and I probably would have come at. That's John chapter 6, verse 14. Now, when the people saw the miraculous sign that Jesus performed, they began to say to one another, this is certainly the prophet. That's another way to say this is Moses. This must be the new Moses who has come into the world. But then Jesus, because he knew they were going to come and seize him by force to make him king, withdrew again up the mountainside alone. You see, as soon as they start going, this must be the new Moses, Jesus goes, oh, I understand what they're trying to do right now. They want to make me their king, and in the same way that they think Moses was used, but that Moses overthrew Egypt and brought them out of slavery into their own kingdom. Now they're under the rule of Rome, and they believe that I am here to overthrow the Roman government and give Israel back as a nation. Jesus in this moment in essence is going, they want what I can do for them, but they don't want me yet. They only want how I can deliver them. And so he goes up the mountain and he disappears for a moment. And then in the Bible, this story is interrupted again with maybe the other more famous story from this section. Jesus is up on the mountain. His disciples get in a boat and they go to the other side. And then in the middle of the night, they look up and they're like, there's a ghost coming at us. And it's Jesus walking on water. And Peter's like, I want some of that. So he jumps out of the boat and he walks. It's great. We should probably like teach that text and preach on that sometime. It's great. It's great. So that story comes in the middle. And then the next morning, everybody wakes up and they're like, where did Jesus go? Where is Jesus? And they begin to look for him and they can't find him. Then I assume that somebody had the idea of, they're like, you know what? His disciples got in a boat and they went to the other side. Maybe somehow Jesus got over there as well. So they get in boats and they go to the other side where they finally find him and they ask him this. Rabbi, which means teacher, Where or how, when did you get here? Jesus replied, I tell you the truth. You want to be with me because I fed you, not because you understood the miraculous signs. But don't be so concerned about perishable things like food. Spend your energy seeking the eternal life that the Son of Man can give you. For God the Father has given me the seal of his approval. See, Jesus sees the same pattern that we saw in Exodus beginning to happen in the people here. The same pattern is starting up again. You just want what I can give you, what I can do for you. You want more bread. You want more military power. You want me to come and overthrow Rome, but that's not what I'm here to do. You want what you think I can do for you. You don't want relationship with me. And it makes sense that they would think that. Because if you're going to come and overthrow Rome, you're going to need a huge army to do that. And what are the two things that every army needs? They need to be able to feed their army. This guy took a snack lunch the day before, and he fed 5,000 men. Ooh, if you can do that, you can feed an entire army. We've seen him heal the sick and the lame and the broken and the hurting, which means if we go to battle and somebody gets injured, this guy can heal. We have a zombie army that we can use forever. They probably didn't think of it that way, but in my mind, that's what it is. They're going, wait a minute. The two things, manpower and to be able to feed them, this guy can do. Finally, somebody can overthrow Rome. Jesus, we want you because we want you to go do something for us. We know this because their response in verse 28 basically says as much. We want to perform God's works too, so what should we do? They're like, yeah, Jesus, what you're doing, give us some of that. Like, we want to go and we want to do that. Like, how do we do that? Which is then when Jesus gives a really curious answer. This is the only work God wants from you. Believe in the one he has sent. No, we want to go like to war. We want to go teach us to do this. He goes, no, would you just believe in me? You see, throughout the entire New Testament, the word belief is always an action word. Participation with God. That it's not just something we cognitively do. We live our lives in a way that demonstrates we believe. That we trust God with full confidence that he is the giver and the sustainer of life. Belief and action. That God will provide and we get to participate. This is what Israel was to do in the wilderness. That God, you are going to provide every single day. And we're going to trust you to give us enough of the bread for today, but not tomorrow. And we're going to trust you again tomorrow. And then on the weekend, we're going to trust that you're going to give us enough that we're going to sustain through the weekend. That every single day it is fresh. It doesn't always come with logic and it doesn't always make sense. But God, I trust you. Belief in action. But the crowd wants more. Here's verse 30. Show us a miraculous sign if you want us to believe in you. What can you do? After all, our ancestors ate manna while they journeyed through the wilderness. I read this and I'm like, are you kidding me? They're like, hey, the 5,000 feeding of people yesterday was pretty cool. But what about today? Like, could you do more, please? If we're going to believe in you, we need another miracle. We need more from you today. So could you give us, after all, our ancestors, they got it every single day. So you did that yesterday. Where is our bread today? We want some more of it right now. And Jesus gives another curious answer to them. Oh, the scriptures say Moses gave them bread from heaven to eat. But Jesus said, I tell you the truth. You missed the story. Moses didn't give you bread from heaven. My Father did. And now he offers you the true bread from heaven. Jesus goes, it wasn't Moses. Moses was the catalyst. He was the conduit, but it was my Father in heaven who's given it. And now I am in front of you and I'm offering myself as the true bread from heaven. It's literally what it says if we keep going. The true bread of God is the one who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Sir, they said, then give us that bread every single day. Then yeah, that's what we're asking for. That's what we want. But Jesus replied, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry again. Whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. But you haven't believed in me even though you have seen me. Jesus is pointing out to them something that they couldn't understand, but you and I can because we've seen the entire movie. He goes, oh, you don't want more of me. You want more of what I can give to you. Because where I'm going is to a cross where I'm going to die. We're not overthrowing a government in the way that you think we are. Death is in my future, and you don't yet want to participate in that with me. You want me to take away the pain. You want me to overthrow the government. You want me to rule. There are ways that you are assuming things that I should do for you, but I'm calling you to just have me as the bread of life. You see, we know that the people miss it because their response to Jesus is similar language that we saw in Exodus. Then the people began to murmur. This is the grumbling. This is the complaining. In disagreement because he'd said to them, I am the bread of life that came down from heaven. They were like, wait, isn't this Jesus the son of, we know that guy's dad. We know him. How can he say he came down from heaven? We know his mom. You know what? We know the scandal of his birth where there was that weird thing where his parents weren't yet married and yet she was pregnant and they said it was some virgin birth thing. But we know the scandal of that. We know the family drama. We know his family origin. We know the history. How does this guy say he came down from heaven? In other words, the people here choose not to believe in who Jesus is because he's not willing to do for them what they think Jesus should be doing. Jesus says, I am the bread of life. So come to me and you will never go hungry again. He's calling them to trust in Jesus for who he is, not just what he can do. You see, I read that text and I think so often I come to Jesus and I'm going, Jesus, I'm coming to you for what you can do for me rather than who you simply are. And I understand why we think about it that way, because that's often how the gospel is presented. Right? If you've been following Jesus for any amount of time, you've probably heard the gospel presented in a way where we say, hey, would you come and trust in Jesus? And by trusting in Jesus because of his death and his resurrection, in the future, there is now no longer damnation or eternal hell for you. No, you can escape all of that because of what Jesus has done. There is a future for you that you can trust in. And although I fully believe in that in his death and resurrection, Jesus conquered sin and death once and for all, and it is dead and buried, which means I have a secure future that I get to trust and love and where I get to be in his presence for all of eternity. That is so true, but it is an incomplete gospel. Because it means that the only thing I get from Jesus is somewhere in the future. And if I'm trusting in Jesus only for something he can do for me in the future, then I miss what Jesus has for me and who he is in the present. See, it's about loving Jesus for who he is, not just what he can do for me. You see, when I only approach Jesus as the bread of life for what he can give me, that means I've entered into a relationship with him where I am using him rather than loving him. And it never feels good to be used, does it? I can remember a time in high school where I was in a band. And by band, what I mean by that is not like the school band. I was in that in junior high, and then I quit that and I joined a band, the kind of band that you begin in your mom's garage and then you move to your mom's basement. That's literally what we did. We started in a mom's garage and then we moved to one of the mom's basements. In fact, I was telling the story recently. My mom was in town and she ended up sending me a picture from the album cover of the band. I'll entertain you. Here it is. This is our band. You can check us out on the web at callingephraim.com. That probably doesn't exist anymore. If you're wondering which one of the guys is me, it's the guy squatting awkwardly there that looks like he's, doing something in the woods you should do privately in the woods. So this is also a picture of where I grew up. And I point that out to you because you notice there's one tree. That's the only tree within 20 miles. And that's not an exaggeration. And that little piece of water there, that's a lake where I grew up. And so this is our band. I love this band. You should probably know this. We played on television one time. So somewhere out there's a recording of this, and I know it because my mom sent me a 30-second clip of it. I didn't bring that this morning. I've embarrassed myself enough with this picture that is there. But we played on God's Learning Channel. Why God needs a learning channel, I don't know. But we played on God's Learning Channel, and so somewhere out there, I'm sure there's footage of it. Now, here's the deal. I was in this band, and we eventually broke up, and I'm pretty convinced we broke up right before we were making it huge. But we were in. I was in this band, and I loved it. And we kind of the style of music we played that we had a huge kind of rhythm and percussion section. We had djembes and congas and bongas and chimes and harmonicas and shakers and rain sticks and maracas and tambourines and you name it, we had bought it, we had it. There was two of us that kind of ran around playing all these instruments. But there came a moment, like towards the end of the time as a band, where, for true or not, and I'm still friends with the people in the band today. Some of them, we were in each other's weddings. But there came a point towards the end of that time where I got the feeling, be it true or not, that they didn't really want me in the band anymore. That they didn't really like what I was bringing to the table, my music ability, the kind of ideas that I had about music and where we should go, that they didn't really like me being there. You see, there was a problem. I owned all the percussion instruments. So if they get rid of me, the band breaks up. So they couldn't get rid of me. And yet it felt terrible to feel used in that way, where they only wanted what I could give them, not who I actually was. In fact, it started a story cycle in me that through some counseling and some other leadership cohort stuff, I've had to begin to undo in my life. Because that feeling of being used cut so deep to who my identity became. It never feels good to be used in that way. And yet, how often do I treat Jesus the same way? Hey, Jesus, would you come and bless my marriage? Never mind the fact that I don't honor you with my spouse or my fiance. I just want your blessing, but I don't want to actually participate in it in the way that you would want. Hey, Jesus, could you just come and help me close this deal? Like I just really need this finances to come through. Never mind that I'm not going to let you into my heart to become a more generous person. I'm just going to use what I gain for my own selfish purposes. Hey, Jesus, could you just come and rid myself of this sickness or this pain or this difficult thing, or rather than looking for what is God teaching me in the middle of it, and where is he in it, and what is the unique story that he's going to give me, that then I am uniquely positioned to be a catalyst for change later on and can empathize different. No, God, just take it away, but don't teach me in the middle of it. God, would you give me another sign? I just want more bread, not you. See, I think I treat Jesus that way sometimes. And maybe the reason I do that is we miss the metaphor of what it means that Jesus is the bread of life. You see, in our modern world, we think of bread as like a treat, right? It's cookies, it's cupcakes, it's a cake, it's a donut, it's a carb, it's something that if you're like wrestling with gluten stuff like I am, it's like anathema, like I should just avoid it. I want nothing to do with it, right? If I'm going to be healthy, then I don't have it. But that's not the way that bread has been used throughout most of history. Most of history, bread has been part and parcel to all that life is. It just is kind of an illustrative purposes. In both ancient Egypt, Greek, and medieval Europe, bread was used as currency. You could pay somebody in bread. In Rome, soldiers were paid in bread. Oh, that makes the feeding of the 5,000 make so much more sense. Not only can he feed them, but he can pay them. And so we know that, in fact, one of my favorites is that in Rome, you could pay your taxes with bread. Guys, we had tax day just a couple of weeks ago. Imagine if you'd come up short on that a little bit, and like the government's calling you and you're like, hey, I know I was short in money, but I got some sweet sourdough, right? Like I'd be like, come on, I want to do that. Like I want to be able to pay in bread. The French Revolution was partially sparked because of a bread shortage and rising cost in the ingredients that it took to make bread. Throughout most of history, bread was not something to be consumed. It was something that was the bedrock, the part and parcel sustainer of life. And so Jesus is coming in and he's saying to this crowd, you keep wanting the things from me, but I am actually the most important thing. I am the bread of life. So my question for us this morning is really, really simple. Is Jesus your bread of life? And when I was writing this, I got to that point and I wrote, is Jesus your bread of life? And I was like, is that really our takeaway question for today? Is that it? And then I remembered that we titled the this Simply Jesus, and I was like, I'm just going to lean into that. We're just going to lean into the simplicity of that. Now, it's a simple question, but it's got some complex answers. Is Jesus the one that you most fully rely on? Is he the individual that you come to for everything, or do you rely on other things more? Your own manners, your own methods, your own ways and means of doing things. Doing it in a way that I want it to work out, and so I keep going to discount bread that will kind of sustain me, but not really. It's cheap and it doesn't have any nutritional value to it. Or do I go to Jesus as my bread of life? Do I rely on my own personal values, my own honesty and integrity, and that, well, you know what, I'm kind enough and I'm honest enough and I have these things, and so that's going to be enough to get me through? Am I relying on my finances and job security and the market and my abilities and my resilience and my potential to be the thing that I rely on? If I am, none of that lasts. Jesus is only the true bread of life. Or maybe there's a relationship. Maybe there's a relationship that's gotten weird for you. Right? It's gotten weird, and so you're just avoiding that person altogether. You're just wanting nothing to do with them. And let me be clear, I'm not talking about an abusive relationship and where you need to steer clear. I'm talking about that person that the relationship is strained because of an unresolved issue or incident. And yet you're avoiding them. You're avoiding them, and by avoiding them, you're trusting yourself to fix it. You know what? If we just give enough time, if we just give enough space, it'll go away. But maybe relying on Jesus as the bread of life is no, I'm going to run to Jesus for wisdom about this situation, to address it, and to give me, in relationship with him, how to enter back into relationship with someone else. Which maybe means there's a conversation. There's a conversation that you have to have in order to clear the air with a friend or a coworker or a loved one or a family member. And you need to lean in so that you can both grow in understanding of each other, even if it means you end up disagreeing on something. And when I've got to go have the hard conversation, there's sort of two options, right? You can just in the moment, just flare up, rip the Band-Aid off and dive in like that Wonder Bread that tastes really good but doesn't sustain you going on. Or you can spend time with Jesus, consuming him as your bread of life, asking him to speak wisdom and to go how to have the conversation, to give you grace and mercy to understand things that you really can't see. When you rely on Jesus like that, it's like carbo loading before a big race. That you're yeah, I'm going in. God, I want your godliness to come in me so that godliness can come out of me. Maybe there's a big decision that you're facing right now. And you're facing this decision and the anxiety begins to just creep up and you're going, man, I wish that I didn't have to make this decision. In fact, could I just give up? Would somebody else make the decision for me? Would they just remove the options for me? But when you do that and you rely on other things, you're relinquishing your agency, and it feels like trusting Jesus, but it's not. It's not. Instead to say, no, God, you were going to provide, but I'm going to stay participating. So I'm going to come and I'm going to commune with you and grow in understanding of you. God, would you help me discern this decision? I want you to speak into it. God, I want to do so much that I'll be indifferent to what I want because I want to hear what you have for me in every step of the way. And then even if I make a bad decision in the process, I'm going to trust that God can sustain me in the middle of it. Maybe you have a marriage that is broken and falling apart right now. And you're so scared that it's dead and over. What if I told you Jesus can bring dead things back to life? And he does so when we stop trying to force our own way and we surrender over to his way and say, Jesus, I just want more of you in my life and in my relationship. So I'm going to stop demanding the outcomes and I'm going to allow you to direct the path that I go. Not my will, but your will be done. Because Jesus, you are my bread of life, and I need you every single day. Maybe your kids are out of control right now. So you feel embarrassed and ashamed whenever you're out with them because you can't control them. Trusting in Jesus as your bread of life is acknowledging that by their very nature, children can't control themselves. And so it's part of your job to exercise self-control with them, that it's taught by a loving adult and natural consequences and discipline over years and decades. That means then I have to engage in that as well and hold the mirror up to myself and do so in relationship with Jesus to say, Spirit, would you come and search me and know me and point out the areas where my parenting is failing me. It means I need to be in community with people around me to go, here is how I am struggling with this, and I need more of Jesus. That is trusting Jesus to be your daily bread. Or maybe you need to repair the way that you just communicate with people. Creating conversations around you, listening, asking more questions rather than trying to control the outcome with statements, focusing in on understanding the person in front of you rather than what you want to get out of them. You've got to trust that things will work out. Instead of forcing it, you go, Jesus, I need you to step in and be with me in this relationship. So let me ask the question again. Is Jesus your bread of life? Do I love Jesus for who he is, or only what I expect from him? If it's relationship, I just want to love Jesus for being Jesus. You know, interestingly, in this text, there's this moment where it says this happened just before Passover. For going on like a couple of decades now, my family has had a Passover meal that we do every year together. We celebrated this just before Easter. It's called a Seder dinner. And if you've ever been a part of one, there's usually a script that you follow. And there's a moment in the script where you learn this word, dayenu. Dayenu simply means it would have been enough. And the way the script goes, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, it basically says, God, had you delivered us from slavery but not had us cross the Red Sea, it would have been enough. God, had you allowed us to cross the Red Sea but not provided bread in the wilderness, it would have been enough. God, had you delivered us into the promised land but not taken care of the enemies that were there, it would have been enough. And it goes on and on and on to say, God, you have already done these things for us. You are enough. You've done it already. And as a follower of Jesus that knows the full story, I can't help every time I do that but just go, Jesus, had you come and lived a life fully God and fully man to demonstrate what it looks like to submit to the Father and the Spirit and everything, it would have been enough. But then, Jesus, you went to the cross and you died in my place and you rose from the dead, conquering sin and death, and that would have been enough. But then you sent the Holy Spirit to indwell every follower of Jesus to convict us and spur us on and teach us how to be in relationship with you. And God, that would have been enough. But then you gave us the Bible in your text and your scripture revealing who you are and how much you love us. And God, that would have been enough. But then you have given us the church where we can sit in community and be encouraged and take the future and make it real now. And so God, it is enough. I don't need you to do anything for me. You have done it. I just want you. You are my bread of life. See, when we come to Jesus for simply who he is and not what he does for us, it changes everything. So that's why it's such the simple question this morning. Jesus declares, I am the bread of life, the sustainer and the giver of everything. Is he yours? Let's pray together. Father, I thank you for being the one who has sent the Son, who is our bread of life. Jesus, may we just be in relationship with you for who you are. Full stop. It's in the name of Jesus that we pray. Amen.